What's going on, guys? It is Murderink here, back with another Champion Spotlight video. Today we're going to be talking about the Undead Support Legendary Champion that is the current Fragment Champion, Elegaeus. Now he's a really cool looking champion, as you can see from his aesthetics. We already know Plarium does a great job as far as how the champion actually looks. Let's go over his kit. Let's see if this Fragment Champion is actually worth you pursuing, if there's a potential buff on the way based on how his kit is so far, and where he can actually help you out in the game. So first, going over his A1, he does have that chance to apply the 25% block cooldowns, which is a very strong cooldown. So already there's going to be really good synergy with something like counterattack, especially in dungeon content, faction wars, or arena. Moving on to our second skill here, we have kind of a strange skill. Attacks one enemy, puts that target's skills on cooldown, meaning every single skill on cooldown. However, for those of you who don't know, this doesn't work with passives. The same thing applies to Warlord. If you use Warlord's A3, he will not put, for example, Lydia or Tormund's passive on cooldown. The same will in fact be applied to this A2 dead stop. However, there is an interesting interaction here where if there are duplicates on the enemy team, it also applies this to them. I don't really think that was needed, but it is a benefit, punishing your opponent if they do have duplicates. Definitely that's going to be strong in faction wars, because that's probably the most common place you would actually see duplicate legendaries or epics in the same wave at once. Moving on to his A3, which is probably going to be the focal point of the kit here. Attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance, once booked up to 100% chance of removing 2 random buffs from the enemies. Also has a 75, once again up to 100% chance of decreasing all enemies' turn meters by 20%. Decreases enemy turn meters by a further 0.2% for every 1% HP this champion loses. Now going on to his passive, which definitely looks very interesting. What this will do is it's going to prevent this champion's death once they get hit with a killing blow or a fatal hit, as they consider it, keeping them alive with just 1 HP. After that, if this skill does in fact happen and the passive is applied, it will heal them by 10% of their maximum health, build their turn meter by 20%, as well as placing a shield buff equal to 30% of their maxed HP for 2 turns. However, one thing I really didn't like, and I went over this in my Discord when I did the basic breakdown before this champion actually came out, is if this champion's under a heal reduction debuff, this will not be applied. Now, there aren't a ton of champions that do apply heal reduction debuffs that are currently in the meta as far as arena goes. However, as far as other content for dungeons, so on and so forth, this debuff is pretty common, and it's unfortunate they penalized his passive by simply having 1 debuff active. One other thing that is worth noting, after testing I did find out that if a champion hits this champion more than once, it will actually bypass his passive altogether and simply kill Elegaeus. Champions I used to test this on were people like Brachus, Trunda. After using their multi-hit abilities, they were able to just one-shot Elegaeus right away, which was definitely, as I mentioned, disappointing to see. I would have liked it to count both hits and then prevent the death, activating this passive. However, if they were going to do that, it was much more clear to me after reading this tooltip when it says keeps them alive on 1 HP when hit by a fatal hit instead of a fatal skill. That was my indicator after rereading it that this only applies on a single hit target, kind of making him like a much worse Rhodos as far as a passive goes, and making him just as susceptible to being completely taken out by any multi-hitting champions. Now, really quickly looking at this champion's base statistics, we have 22,000 base health, which is definitely very healthy for an HP champion. We have 800 attack, low because it doesn't affect this champion, 1,200 defense, which is respectable, 106 speed, which is definitely nice, and we have 15 and 50% crit damage, baseline 30 resistance, and 20 accuracy. As you can see from the build I have on the screen, after all of my testing, this is what I determined to be the most beneficial build for most people trying to get Elegaeus. 50,000 health, 2,400 defense, 247 speed, crit rate and crit damage do not matter at all, and 364 accuracy. Now, as you all know, the first thing I do when I take a champion is I do a quick damage check on these champions. But just for some background so you know where I'm coming at with this video, I have done around 3 to 4 hours of testing. A lot of it was live on stream, some of it was off stream. He put this guy in the best damage gear possible, and he was extremely underwhelming as far as his damage. So I determined from that, personally, it is not worth building any damage on this guy. If you want crit rate for that extra buffer of damage, that's totally fine. However, his multipliers are not good enough to actually justify damage. Moving on to the masteries, for me personally, unless you're going to run him in dungeon content where you're struggling with damage, I would go the War Master route. However, for Arena, this is the recommended mastery build that I would personally put forward out there for a champion like Elegaeus. Now that we've gone over that, what I want to do is I want to take this guy in the campaign, show you a quick run, and pretty much go over his animations just to see what he looks like in action here. So first we're going to start off with his A2 ability here, which is Dead Stop. It's just an upward slash, nothing too crazy. Now he's going to get another turn because he is fast enough for a campaign. We're going to use the A3 ability, which is probably the coolest one that we're going to see here today. So let's take a look. We do have what looks like a serpent's tail. A lot of people on stream speculated that it was in fact his tongue. I don't personally think so, but it was interesting nonetheless. And we just have a different jabbing animation for his A1. So as far as the A1 and A3 goes, it's nothing too special. The only really eye-opening thing, something that's, I don't want to say new because there's certain types of animations that are similar to the A3. So let's just take a look at it again. We have these serpent's tails coming out of the ground. Pretty cool overall. But once again, nothing eye-opening that really makes you take a step back and appreciate the animations too much. So now that we did that, let's take Elegaeus straight into the arena, see what he has to offer. This is the team we're going to be fighting here. We are going to be using Arbiter, Siphi, Trunda, as well as Elegaeus here, fighting an enemy Arbiter, Zargala, Umbral Enchantress, and a Roto. So let's see how this goes. We do have our double hit here. Now, one thing to keep in mind here, thankfully we're going to go first here. We will boost the turn meter now with Arbiter for a second go. Now, this champion has an AoE that removes debuffs and decreases the turn meter. Now, if you have a perfectly speed-tuned team and you're not worried about getting cut off, what are some options that you have? So as we can see from this team, I have zero reason to be removing debuffs. However, one thing I can do to make sure, just in case I'm worried that someone like Trunda actually has a chance to go, I can go ahead, use this A2 straight on the enemy Arbiter, putting all of her skills on cooldown, so if she does cut me off, she's simply using her A1. So I will give Elegaeus credit, he does have that to his advantage, as opposed to someone like a Madame Seris, where if you're fighting a team like this, you don't need to strip any buffs. While she does have the utility of applying that defense down as well as an attack down, a lot of champions don't need that damage to actually kill the target. Let's see what we can do here with this Trunda. Alright, so we ended up killing everyone, but we got a weak hit on the Zargala here. So we'll just simply put it to sleep. Cycle through here. And now we can use this A3 just to look at the animation. And we can see once again another weak hit, so we weren't able to kind of get a gauge for the damage, but as I said before, the damage is definitely underwhelming. So this would be the most practical use for Elegaeus in the arena. Now there are a few things to talk about. A lot of people are really wondering whether or not they should actually go for this champion. The answer I've come up with in my head is there are conditions for whether or not this champion's worth it. I don't believe this champion's actually going to get buffed in the future, for the simple fact that if you don't have a Sethalia, if you don't have a Madame Seris, this is a good champion for you to have. Elegaeus is unfortunately a worse version than Sethalia, and arguably a worse version than Madame Seris, even though the only thing they have in common is stripping buffs. While Madame Seris has that defense down and attack down, Elegaeus has the reduced turn meter as well as the block cooldown on his A1 and resetting all of the enemy champions' cooldowns with a single hit on the A2. So my recommendation for you is, if you do not have Sethalia, this is a good fusion for you to go after. If you do not have Madame Seris, take a look at what team you have. If you're still working on Faction Wars, he's definitely going to be extremely good for Faction Wars because of that A2 ability that puts everything on cooldown, so there's no doubt about that. But as far as all other content like Arena, He's definitely much more auto-friendly than a champion is like Madame Seris. He will always use that A3, which is the good news. However, the bad news is if you don't have enough damage on your nuker to actually kill your targets without defense down, then Madame Seris is going to be the better option for you. So while I wasn't personally too thrilled about this champion, I do think it looks cool as mentioned before. However, there are definitely better options in the game. This champion is currently available as the current Fragment Fusion, so that is the benefit. If you don't have a champion who removes debuffs, lowers the turn meter, this can definitely help you out. With the current meta of running 2 turn meter boosters in the arena, this is definitely a viable option if you would like to use Arbiter, Elegaeus, and then 2 other champions. That's very strong. My personal recommendation would be if you have a Valkyrie and she isn't held up with some type of clan boss content, you can definitely use Elegaeus there and really take advantage of this A1 ability here. I'm really not impressed with chance increasing by 0.75 and the other multiplier with, I believe it was, so it's also the A3 with having to lose health. Unfortunately, this champion's stats aren't really crazy enough to justify him in a go second team. Maybe if he's paired with a champion like Duchess or Suga, it's possible. However, you would need an extremely significant damage dealer to make sure that team actually succeeds going forward. If that were the case, you could definitely use the champion to your advantage and actually get some benefit out of the HP loss mechanic that we see in the A1, A3. Overall, I was very disappointed to find out about the passive. Like I mentioned when I was going over the skills here, this champion will in fact counter a Rotos very well, being a one-hit champion. Even though we don't see them too often, Rotos is still good. He still does a ton of damage. This is a champion that isn't going to get one-shot by a Rotos, so that is the good news. Unfortunately, any Blender team, any Trunda team is going to shred through your Elegaeus unless, as mentioned, you have some really strong champions allowing you to go second and really get that benefit. So that is my overall view on this champion. Let me know what you guys think. Are you going to go for this Fragment Fusion? Are you going to skip it? Do you think this champion is going to get buffed? Do you think I'm wrong or they're not going to leave him alone? My reasoning was the A1 and the A2 to provide some outside utility despite the A3 not being as strong as other champions in the game. I really don't like comparing Madame Seris to someone like Elegaeus because everyone knows that Madame Seris is a rather strong epic, if not the strongest in the game, so it's a really hard comparison to make that has just been released as a legendary. So give me your feedback. I will be reading the comments. I'm interested to know what you guys think about this champion. Where would you use him? Would you use him in dungeons? Would you use him in faction wars? Try him out in arena if he's going to fit. If you don't have access to a champion that strips debuff, I think this is a home run for you. I think there is zero reason to actually skip this Fragment Fusion if you have the means to, of course, and have the resources saved up, or if you were looking to purchase them. Alright guys, that is going to conclude my video. Thank you to the clan member that let me use their account to showcase this. I really appreciate that. Don't forget, if you like this content, subscribe, turn on those notification bells, and I will see you all in the next video.